Welcome back to Knitty Knotty Hand-Dyed Yarns and Beginner's Knitting. Today we're going to go over the purl stitch. So in previous videos we did go over the basics and getting started, casting on, and then the second video was on the knit stitch. So today we're going to do the purl stitch, which is again the opposite of the knit stitch. So if you do a knit stitch every single row, or a purl stitch every single row, you're going to end up with fabric that looks like this, which is the garter stitch. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you the purl stitch, and we're going to do a whole row of purl, and then I'm going to do knit, going back the other way, and then purl, knit, purl. So I'm going to alternate each row, not each stitch, but each row, and then I will show you what that looks like. It'll be a little bit different. So if we are going to do our purls, we want to get our hand ready. Now you can do the throwing method. So if you were going to do that, you still do basically the same, but just how you hold it. So we're still going to go for a purl stitch. We're going to go from right to left. Remember with knit, we went from left to right, and then we grabbed the yarn with the needle and pulled it through. But now with the purl, we're going to go right to left. So with a purl stitch, since it's the opposite, remember with the knit, we had the yarn in the back. With a purl, we always want our yarn in the front. Okay, just kind of get it in the front and then get it out of the way there. So if you were going to use the throwing method, you'd insert your needle right to left, and then I would wrap it from the outside around, not this way, and I'll show you why a little later in the video, but you're going to wrap it up and around, hold your yarn and scoop that yarn through, and then you can throw that other stitch off. Okay, if you are, oops, that happens, just put it back on, it's okay. So if you're holding the yarn in your left hand, you're going to see that you can easily move it front to back depending on what stitch you're doing. So you have a lot more control with your index finger. So you're going to have the yarn in front, and you're going to move your needle from right to left, and then you're going to wrap that yarn around. You don't want to go under, you want to go over. Okay, so it might take some time to figure out how to do that comfortably, but you're going to go over and scoop that yarn through and then pull that other one off the cliff. Okay, so again, right to left, yarn over. Oops, now we lost a stitch. So now what do? Nope, you just make sure you put it back on. Now if you drop a stitch off, it's important to put it back on in the correct direction. Okay, so if you look, the stitches are directional. You want to put it on so that the stitch is going in the right to left motion. So if you put it back on the stitch this way, it's on there, but it's not in the right direction. You'll notice it'll be a little bit more difficult to catch your stitches, and the stitches will be turned in the wrong direction. It won't look the same. So make sure that your stitches go back on the needle in the correct direction. And then just start again. So get your yarn in front, stab. Now I'm not excellent at purling in this way, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the throwing method for this, because it's just faster and easier for me. So we're just going to go right to left, wrap it around, and pull it through. And just do whichever method feels more comfortable to you. Again, this method takes a little longer because you have to let go of the needle to wrap it around and then pull it through. So, you know, it does take a tiny bit longer, but If it's more comfortable for you to do it that way, then go ahead and do it that way. And then if at some point you wanted to learn the other method, you could always teach yourself that method at a later time. So just do what's comfortable for you as you're learning how to knit, and then once you're comfortable knitting, then you can try to learn that other skill. Okay, so I have flipped my work over because I finished the row. So now remember we said we wanted to do knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. So we did our purl row, and on this side then I will do a knit row. So my yarn is in the back, my needle goes left to right, and we knit along there. Oops. So that's what happens when you split your yarn, and it happens a lot with this type of yarn. It's kind of fuzzy, so it's easy to split. So we already learned the knit stitch, so I'm not going to take too much time showing you, but I'm just doing a whole row of the knit stitch all the way to the end. Then we turn it over, and we get our needle in place here. Now again, you saw when I turned it that the stitch was kind of up here, and that's pretty normal. With purling, we want the stitch in front, we want the needle in front, or I'm sorry, the yarn in front. If you were going to knit, you would want to pull that back here. Either way, you don't want it to go over, because you can see how that would make an extra stitch. So we want that, push that little stitch down. All right, and now we're going to go back to purling. So right to left, wrap your yarn over the top of your needle, not under, and pull it through and slide that stitch off. So through right to left, over, pull that loop up, and then it can come off the left needle. So round and round we go. Now, a lot of people choose one way to knit or the other. It doesn't really matter. Both get the job done. But you may find that if you flip-flop, because I do, that your tension will be different. So your stitches knitting one way may be different than the other. So if you're a thrower, your stitches may tend to be a little bit tighter than if you're knitting a traditional way. Okay. Now you can see if we alternate, and you can see some of my stitches were more loose, but then you have a knit stitch on each side, because when we purled going back the other way, the back of the purl is a knit stitch, and so you have just knit stitches available on this side and just purls on this side. Now I know it looks kind of similar on the video, but you can tell the difference. So down here where we did knit, and then on either row, you can definitely see the little knit stitches in between the purls, where up here you cannot, because we don't have a knit stitch in between there. We did purl stitches on each row. So that is the basics. So far you have casting on, you have knitting, and you have purling. You've done knit every row, you've done knit, purl opposite rows, and that is called stockinette stitch. So here we have the garter stitch, and here we have stockinette stitch, and then in the next video we will learn casting off.